Washington added 2 high-ceiling linebackers to the 2025 class.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into a bonus edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He's site editor with Athlon Sports Inside the Huskies. I'm the site editor with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your, whatever watch or listen of the day it is for you. Since it's, we're coming to you on a Monday afternoon. I'm still over here on the East Coast. We needed to jump on and pod because Lars, not only did Washington secure 3-star linebacker Donovan Robinson last night, who we're going to get into, but on Monday afternoon, the number 2 prospect in the state of Washington, 4-star athlete, going to play linebacker, going to play safety, Jonathan Epperson from Auburn Riverside High School announced that he will also be joining the Huskies. And this is a really big get for Robert Bala, for Jedd Fisch, for Steve Belichick, for Washington's entire coaching staff.
Yeah, this is exactly, not just the only guy that Washington needed to get, but especially when you think about how to build out the defense, because you can get the best player of the state. That's cool. That's one thing. And you can get a couple other guys in state, but it's stacking those bodies together at different positions. And you mentioned he'll play linebacker. Again, this is really the kind of discussion that we've had throughout this entire class. It's take the talent at any position, and you can figure out, does he play better at linebacker? Does he play better at safety? And the same thing that we'll talk about later with Robinson. Where is their best fit? We could have that discussion. I'm surely knowing us, we will. But for the coaches, you just take the talent, and I think it's a good thing when you think about the last half. We heard a little bit of interest from the last half. Maybe he was going to commit, but nothing ever publicly came to fruition. And so this is really a mark on Jedd Fisch to say, you know what? We want to prioritize the state of Washington. We're going to get some guys out of state as well, but we really need to shore up the state of Washington. Getting one of the top guys in the state publicly to commit is a massive indication as to where the staff is headed, both short and long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And, tacking this on to Victor Sanchez-Hernandez, who committed on Sunday, it's just a really great way to continue to stack talent, which is what it's all about. And with Epperson, he's rated as the number 14 athlete in the country. As we said, the number 2 player in the state of Washington. And this is somebody who's listed at 6 foot 210, certainly moves very well at linebacker, but I was so impressed by his film at safety. And this is the kind of guy where, whenever I talk about Steve Belichick and his defense, and as he said many times, the scheme will fit the players, this is that guy, where there are a lot of guys that, by the end of this class, when everybody signs, that we're going to look back and say, this guy is fun. He can play here or there. Victor Sanchez-Hernandez, like we just said, is a guy yesterday who committed. In the same vein, where you look at him and you say, maybe he ends up at 3-tech, maybe he ends up at edge. He can do a whole lot of different things. That's really nice. But Jonathan Epperson might be just like the quintessential. I think Matai Tagawai, like in the class, might be the only one where there's more of an argument for it than Epperson, just in terms of guys Washington is recruiting, where you watch him at linebacker and you say, yeah, that makes sense. And then you watch him at safety, and even whether you've watched him at linebacker or not, you say, yeah, that also makes sense. I see that. He's such a fluid mover. He hits really well. He's got great eyes. And, if you're able to play both positions, you've got to be super athletic to do that, where just watching him is such a treat at both of those positions. And he's somebody where I don't know if he's going to come in and play as a true freshman or play a lot, I want to say, but this is the kind of guy where you can truly build a defensive class around a guy like that.
Exactly. It's one thing to have a guy where you can say, oh, hey, he's going to be this or he's going to be that. I think it's actually a good problem to have where you don't necessarily know where you're going to play him. And the reason I say that is because, as you mentioned with Matai Tagawai, it doesn't preclude taking certain guys down the road to add to the class just to have a cherry on top. This is building that solid foundation that you just mentioned, but it doesn't preclude a guy like Tagawai from flipping or somebody else down the line, maybe that we haven't even discussed, that the staff decides, hey, in September, October, we discovered this relationship or whatever the case may be. But this is exactly the kind of guy that you want to build off of so that those other guys can say, hey, you know what? Oh, that 4-star bought in, that 4-star bought in, that guy bought in, that guy bought in. Oh, okay, cool. Now I can see that a different amount of guys are all buying into the same concept. And that's exactly what you want from a recruit's perspective, where it's not just, oh, you signed 7 guys from the state of Washington. That's cool. You prioritize your state. But, what does that say for a guy for me where, like Donovan Robinson going from Illinois, if you were starting to look at some of these national guys, okay, you need to have a message that fits both. And I think this is kind of a perfect example of two guys starting off with the in-state one with Jonathan Epperson, where you can build off of and not hinder yourself down the road.
Right. We got more with this right after a quick break. Because we're going to send a message to our good friends over at FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much and never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And speaking of Major League Baseball, all the everydayers know out there how much I love baseball. I've got a little 3-leg parlay that I whipped up for the Monday slate of MLB games. I got the Orioles money line over the Guardians, got the Red Sox money line over the Blue Jays, and I got the Braves money line over the Cardinals, and that comes out to a plus 468. If you want to throw some money on that, let's see what happens. Lars, one thing that I thought about, that I wrote about a little bit over on Huskies Wire, is a potential future pairing here, where it doesn't feel like, even with Epperson, that this is going to be the last of the guys from this visit weekend that have committed. And I couldn't stop thinking about a future pairing of Jonathan Epperson and Zaydrius Rainey-Sale, who we know is committing on July 1st. But I love that thought. And it goes back to what you said about the in-state guys, where Darian Clemens is another one who it seems like Washington's in a really good spot with him as well, who's the number 5 player in the state. And as you just said, taking a whole bunch of guys from the state just because is not a great way to do it. But when we look at the guys that they have prioritized in the state of Washington, when, you look at Christian Thatcher and ended up going to Utah, this is whether they, wanted to continue prioritizing him or they decided to, switch and look at Epperson a little bit harder, whether because he is the in-state guy or they like his flexibility a little bit more, anything like that. This is a really, really great take for those reasons. And I feel like you could say the exact same thing about Donovan Robinson and what his flexibility is.
You really can. And this one for me is one where we saw obviously Vinnie Sunseri gets the first credit in the Twitter tag mentions from Donovan Robinson, but Robert Bala was right there. And when you look at his size at 6'2", 6'3", 210, you could easily see how if he adds another 10 to 15 pounds, give or take, roughly in that realm, he can mold down and more into a linebacker. And if he's able to stay at that 210, 205, 215 max role, he can still hang at safety, but I think in reality, he's long-term better at linebacker.
I agree with you there. I disagree that if he adds weight, that he's not going to be able to hang at safety. This dude is such a good mover. I think he's one of the more underrated prospects just in this class, truly, where I feel like I've been saying that about a lot of these targets in Washington had that's, under the radar, Dominic McCone, Elijah Ficona, Donovan Robinson. But this guy, you watch his film and then you look at his offer list, and I just kind of said to myself, why? Like, this dude, he doesn't just hang at safety. He's really good at safety. This dude doesn't hang at linebacker. He's really good at linebacker. He moves so well. And when you combine that where he's listed at 6'3", 210, those are all the makings that you want in a guy that's going to be, especially a Big Ten linebacker. And it came down to Washington and Minnesota. And again, I'm just looking at that. I'm just saying to myself, why? Like, this is a guy where if he's one of the bigger risers over the course of his senior season, I wouldn't be surprised. I love everything it is that he does. I think he's a really good hitter. And as he continues to grow, there might even be, a potential way for him to like line up as an outside linebacker at times, because he just has that frame, that athleticism, that burst, that get off, all those things that you want in a linebacker. And, one thing that I feel needs to be talked about here is that he's also a perfect body type fit for the Big Ten at that 6'3", 210, where, he looks like he could get up to 235, 240 if you wanted to. And if he's able to move well around that size, I know that's a lot of projection there, but if he's able to move well around that size, that's a really fantastic get for this coaching staff. And Lars, I know you got more thoughts on that, but we're going to hit one more break real fast. Please, Lars, I'm sorry I cut you off there. Continue.
No, you're good. I just to clarify, it's not that I don't think he can't hang if he added weight at safety. I just think if you're going to add the weight, might as well move down into the box. That's not to say they can't, but as we're saying all of this, I think it really speaks to the NFL mindset that Steve Belichick and Vinnie Sunseri in particular are bringing to the defense. When you think about what is the modern kind of NFL defense doing, there's a lot of position versatility. There's guys where, not even just with the Patriots, but across the league, where you look at guys saying, hey, can you do this and this? Or I could do a mix of nickel and safety. I can do inside, outside corner. There's a number of guys, more so, and specifically on defense, where you're not pigeonholed into he's an undersized this or he's a oversized that. It's like, no, he just wherever he happens to excel in the scheme. And one thing that's very clear that you mentioned with everything, high football IQ. That's what a lot of these guys have in common. You can see immediately the ball skills that he has, the readability, the range, all of it. You don't have that level of high skills if you don't have high football IQ. So to me, this is Vinnie. And the one thing to think about with Robinson, because with Epperson, kind of knew what you were getting there. Going all the way out to Chicago, where we've seen this before, we saw it, to be fair, a little bit last year with Dominic Kirks in Ohio. Different staff, obviously different situation. But just going out to the Midwest, going out to Big Ten country and saying, you know what? These are the kind of guys we need to get. We're going to identify them. He committed to Virginia initially, backed away when a position coach left for West Virginia, allowed Washington to come right in. And it seemed like even before the visit, basically he was short of, I guess, hail and rain and Vinnie Sunseri leaving for another job mid-visit. He was going to commit to Washington. So it really speaks to the ability, the relationship that Vinnie and also Robert Bala was able to build with him in that quick 2-month window, get him on campus for an unofficial in April, get him back up in June for the official. And they're closing on all these guys, and that's exactly what we wanted to see. They're identifying the talent, building a relationship, and closing quickly. It's exactly what we wanted to see. We thought maybe we would want to see a little bit earlier, but these are the types of bodies. So if you got to wait a couple of weeks for the right bodies, you're more than willing to do that.
I completely agree. And like the last thing that I want to say on this before we get out of here is I remember when they offered him, I said, okay, that's an interesting offer. I didn't really have a big chance to watch his film back then. And then they added him to the official visit list. And I was kind of like, why are they adding another linebacker? Like it feels like you've got a whole lot that are visiting already. And yeah, I get it. You know, you got a whole bunch of guys that are leaving after the year. You want to make sure that you're fully stacked the position heading into the Big Ten. But I feel like you're all set there. And then I watched his film and I said, oh, never mind. They need to get this guy. Like it was that quick of a turnaround when you watch his film because of the size, the movement at that size. And, you know, you like going outside of the footprint every now and again where, yeah, as you said, you know, he goes to Loyola Academy in Illinois, where not a place the Huskies have typically ever done very well. And that's something where you get a take like that. And as you move into the Big Ten, you want to be able to, you're not going to build your class off of guys from Illinois and guys from Ohio, like you said with Dominic Kirks, or even guys from Texas for the most part, because that's just not what Washington's normal range is. You have to stay in Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, Arizona. That's where you want to build the basis of this class. And that's why getting Epperson's a great take. That's why a lot of these guys that they picked up are really nice takes to have so far. And then adding a guy like Robinson on there where he's got the prototypical athleticism, the prototypical size, everything else that you want is great. And it's just stacking all the talent at that position. And he might not be the last one either. You know, when we think about Zaydrius Rainey-Sale, who's committing on July 1st, that's one we're going to be watching very, very closely. And Lars, with that being said, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all everydayers for tuning in. And hey, you know, we remind you to subscribe every time. This is why, for the bonus content that we're dropping like this, as soon as some of these big guys commit, we're trying to make sure we keep you up to date with everything. The best way to do it, like I just said, subscribe wherever you get your podcast, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating this channel with new content 3 times a week, and whenever some of the special bonus content comes along as well. So like the video, click that bell button so you never miss when we post a new episode. You have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them right down below in the comments section. And if you're audio only, please leave us a 5-star review. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday.